Be a free thinker and don't accept everything you hear as truth. Be critical and evaluate what you believe in. Excellence is never an accident. It is always the result of high intention, sincere effort, and intelligent execution. It represents the wise choice of many alternatives. Choice, not chance, determines your destiny. Educating the mind without educating the heart is no education at all. The more you know you don't know. Criticism is something we can avoid easily by saying nothing, doing nothing, and being nothing. A fool contributes nothing worth hearing and takes offense at everything. Our problem is not that we aim too high and miss, but that we aim too low and hit. Life is only meaningful when we are striving for a goal. Happiness is a quality of the soul, not a function of one's material circumstances. It is our choice of good or evil that determines our character, not our opinion about good or evil. The worst form of inequality is to try to make unequal things equal. Doubt is the beginning of wisdom. Only an armed people can be truly free. Only an unarmed people can ever be enslaved. Masculine republics give way to feminine democracies, and feminine democracies give way to tyranny. Think as the wise men think, but talk like the simple people do. The high-minded man does not bear grudges, for it is not the mark of a great soul to remember injuries, but to forget them. You will never do anything in this world without courage. It is the greatest quality of the mind next to honor. The fool tells me his reason. The wise man persuades me with my own. You are what you repeatedly do. Character is determined by choice, not opinion. The society that loses its grip on the past is in danger, for it produces men who know nothing but the present, and who are not aware that life had been, and could be, different from what it is. What is the essence of life? To serve others and to do good. Today, see if you can stretch your heart and expand your love so that it touches not only those to whom you can give it easily, but also to those who need it so much. We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, therefore, isn't just an act, but a habit, and life isn't just a series of events, but an ongoing process of self-definition. Character is revealed through action. No great mind has ever existed without a touch of madness. Teenagers these days are out of control. They eat like pigs. They are disrespectful of adults. They interrupt and contradict their parents, and they terrorize their teachers. The roots of education are bitter, but the fruit is sweet. Find the good, seek the unity, ignore the divisions among us. I count him braver who overcomes his desires than him who conquers his enemies, for the hardest victory is over self. It is the mark of an educated mind to be able to entertain a thought without accepting it. Let us first understand the facts, and then we may seek the cause. He who has never learned to obey cannot be a good commander. A friend of everyone is a friend of no one. The man who is truly good and wise will bear with dignity whatever fortune sends, and will always make the best of his circumstances. Before you heal the body, you must first heal the mind. Wise people have an inward sense of what is beautiful, and the highest wisdom is to trust this intuition and be guided by it. Republics decline into democracies, and democracies degenerate into despotisms. Knowing yourself is the beginning of all wisdom. The worst thing about slavery is that the slaves eventually get to like it. At the intersection where your gifts, talents, and abilities meet a human need, therein you will discover your purpose. Nature creates nothing without a purpose. One may go wrong in many different ways, but right only in one, which is why it is easy to fail and difficult to succeed. The high-minded man must care more for the truth than for what people think. Through discipline comes freedom. Fortune favors the bold. Your happiness depends on you alone. There is nothing unequal as the equal treatment of unequals. A goal gets us motivated, while a good habit keeps us stay motivated. It is well to be up before daybreak, for such habits contribute to health, wealth, and wisdom. The best way to avoid envy is to deserve the success you get. Character is made by many acts. It may be lost by a single one. He who has overcome his fears will truly be free. It is impossible or not easy to alter by argument what has long been absorbed by habit. The weak are always anxious for justice and equality. The strong pay no heed to either. Life cannot be lived and understood simultaneously. Love is composed of a single soul inhabiting two bodies. A promise made must be a promise kept. The greatest of all pleasures is the pleasure of learning. The proof that you know something is that you are able to teach it. The most perfect political community is one in which the middle class is in control and outnumbers both of the other classes. Knowledge of the fact differs from knowledge of the reason for the fact. The quality of life is determined by its activities. A proper wife should be as obedient as a slave. The female is a female by virtue of a certain lack of qualities, a natural defectiveness. Youth is easily deceived because it is quick to hope. Our feelings towards our friends reflect our feelings towards ourselves. The intelligence consists not only in the knowledge, but also in the skill to apply the knowledge into practice. Speech is the representation of the mind, and writing is the representation of speech. When it lies in our power to do, it lies in our power not to do. Music directly represents the passions of the soul. If one listens to the wrong kind of music, he will become the wrong kind of person. We can't learn without pain. When there is no middle class and the poor greatly exceed in number, troubles arise and the state soon comes to an end. He overcomes a stout enemy who overcomes his own anger. The aim of the wise is not to secure pleasure, but to avoid pain. He who cannot be a good follower cannot be a good leader. Courage is the mother of all virtues because without it, you cannot consistently perform the others. It is better for a city to be governed by a good man than by good laws. The greatest thing by far is to have a command of metaphor. This alone cannot be imparted by another. It is the mark of genius, for to make good metaphors implies an eye for resemblances. Saying the words that come from knowledge is no sign of having it. Pleasure in the job puts perfection in the work. Love well, be loved, and do something of value. Health is a matter of choice, not a mystery of chance. We are the sum of our actions, and therefore our habits make all the difference. Friendship is a thing most necessary to life, since without friends no one would choose to live, though possessed of all other advantages. Truth is a remarkable thing. We cannot miss knowing some of it, but we cannot know it entirely. The beauty of the soul shines out when a man bears with composure one heavy mischance after another, not because he does not feel them, but because he is a man of high and heroic temper. Philosophy begins with wonder. Humility is a flower which does not grow in everyone's garden. We should aim rather at leveling down our desires than leveling up our means. Greatness of spirit is accompanied by simplicity and sincerity. Education is an ornament in prosperity and a refuge in adversity. Patience is bitter, but its fruit is sweet. To unlearn is as hard as to learn. It would be wrong to put friendship before the truth. The energy of the mind is the essence of life. Those that know, do. Those that understand, teach. The best things are placed between extremes. The greatest crimes are caused by surfeit, not by want. The hardest victory is the victory over self. The whole is more than the sum of its parts. Friends hold a mirror up to each other. Through that mirror they can see each other in ways that would not otherwise be accessible to them, and it is this mirroring that helps them improve themselves as persons. Happiness is a state of activity. It is no easy task to be good. If you would understand anything, observe its beginning and its development. Being a father is the most rewarding thing a man whose career has plateaued can do. All friendly feelings toward others come from the friendly feelings a person has for himself. At his best, man is the noblest of all animals, separated from law and justice he is the worst. Democracy is when the indigent, and not the men of property, are the rulers. If things do not turn out as we wish, we should wish for them as they turn out. He who cannot see the truth for himself, nor, hearing it from others, store it away in his mind, that man is utterly worthless. It is not sufficient to know what one ought to say, but one must also know how to say it. You can never learn anything that you did not already know. For what one has to learn to do, we learn by doing. To write well, express yourself like the common people, but think like a wise man. Man is a goal-seeking animal. His life only has meaning if he is reaching out and striving for his goals. Every man should be responsible to others, nor should any one be allowed to do just as he pleases, for where absolute freedom is allowed, there is nothing to restrain the evil which is inherent in every man. We should behave to our friends as we would wish our friends behaved to us. Well begun is half done. It is a part of probability that many improbable things will happen. To love someone is to identify with them. 95% of everything you do is the result of habit. All persons ought to endeavor to follow what is right and not what is established. A man becomes a friend whenever being loved he loves in return. Excellence is an art won by training and habituation. The difference between a learned man and an ignorant one is the same as that between a living man and a corpse. You are what you do repeatedly. Hope is a waking dream. The habits we form from childhood make no small difference, but rather they make all the difference. Money is a guarantee that we can have what we want in the future. Worms are the intestines of the earth. Excellence, then, is a state concerned with choice, lying in a mean relative to us, this being determined by reason and in the way in which the man of practical wisdom would determine it. There are no experienced young people. Time makes experience. Plato is my friend, but truth is a better friend. His fortune shows those who are not really friends. Education and morals will be found almost the whole that goes to make a good man. We are better able to study our neighbors than ourselves, and their actions than our own. The physician himself, if sick, actually calls in another physician, knowing that he cannot reason correctly if required to judge his own condition while suffering. Courage is the first virtue that makes all other virtues possible. He who sees things grow from the beginning will have the best view of them. We become just by the practice of just actions, self-controlled by exercising self-control, and courageous by performing acts of courage. Of all the varieties of virtues, liberalism is the most beloved. The soul suffers when the body is diseased or traumatized, while the body suffers when the soul is ailing. The hand is the tool of tools. Fate of empires depends on the education of youth. Wit is well-bred insolence. Those who cannot bravely face danger are the slaves of their attackers. Men are marked from the moment of birth to rule or be ruled. The only way to achieve true success is to express yourself completely in service to society. My best friend is the man who in wishing me well wishes it for my sake. Both oligarch and tyrant mistrust the people, and therefore deprive them of their arms. The soul never thinks without a picture. Of the tyrant, spies and informers are the principal instruments. War is his favorite occupation, for the sake of engrossing the attention of the people and making himself necessary to them as their leader. Happiness does not consist in pastimes and amusements, but in virtuous activities. Bad people ... are in conflict with themselves. They desire one thing and will another, like the incontinent who choose harmful pleasures instead of what they themselves believe to be good. Friends are much better tried in bad fortune than in good. Fear is pain arising from the anticipation of evil. All human actions have one or more of these 7 causes: chance, nature, compulsions, habit, reason, passion, desire. Our characters are the result of our conduct. Bring your desires down to your present means. Increase them only when your increased means permit. The actuality of thought is life. All proofs rest on premises. Reason is a light that God has kindled in the soul. The senses are gateways to the intelligence. There is nothing in the intelligence which did not first pass through the senses. A person's life persuades better than his word. Men become richer not only by increasing their existing wealth, but also by decreasing their expenditure. Nothing is what rocks dream about. We are what we frequently do. All paid jobs absorb and degrade the mind. Mothers are fonder than fathers of their children because they are more certain they are their own. Happiness is the settling of the soul into its most appropriate spot. Try is a noisy way of doing nothing. People do not naturally become morally excellent or practically wise. They become so, if at all, only as the result of lifelong personal and community effort. Friends enhance our ability to think and act. There is no genius who hasn't a touch of insanity. You should never think without an image. The good of man is the active exercise of his soul's faculties. This exercise must occupy a complete lifetime. One swallow does make a spring, nor does one fine day. Excellence is a habit, not an event. A gentleman is not disturbed by anything. The aim of art is to represent not the outward appearance of things, but their inward significance. Art is a higher type of knowledge than experience. Teachers who educate children deserve more honor than parents who merely gave them birth, for the latter provided mere life, while the former ensure a good life. Maybe crying is a means of cleaning yourself out emotionally, or maybe it's your last resort, the only way to express yourself when words fail, the same as when you were a baby and had no words. The least initial deviation from the truth is multiplied later 1,000-fold. A right election can only be made by those who have knowledge. Nothing in life is more necessary than friendship. For though we love both the truth and our friends, piety requires us to honor the truth first. Happiness is the reward of virtue. Education and morals make the good man, the good statesman, the good ruler. Authority is no source for truth. Friendship is a single soul dwelling in two bodies. The intention makes the crime. Time crumbles things. Everything grows old under the power of time and is forgotten through the lapse of time. Suffering becomes beautiful when anyone bears great calamities with cheerfulness, not through insensibility, but through greatness of mind. The family is the association established by nature for the supply of men's everyday wants. Perception starts with the eye. A man is the origin of his action. That which is impossible and probable is better than that which is possible and improbable. The eyes are the organs of temptation, and the ears are the organs of instruction. Worthless persons appointed to have supreme control of weighty affairs do a lot of damage. It is more difficult to organize a peace than to win a war, but the fruits of victory will be lost if the peace is not organized. The body is at its best between the ages of 30 and 35. Happiness depends upon ourselves. Art is identical with a state of capacity to make, involving a true course of reasoning. The young are heated by nature as drunken men by wine. A common danger unites even the bitterest enemies. The honors and rewards fall to those who show their good qualities in action. If one way be better than another, that you may be sure is nature's way. No state will be well administered unless the middle class holds sway. Today you can start forming habits for overcoming all obstacles in life, even nicotine cravings. Female cats are very lascivious and make advances to the male. Even that some people try to deceive me many times, I will not fail to believe that somewhere, someone deserves my trust. The greatest thing by far is to be a master of metaphor. Without friends, no one would choose to live, though he had all other goods. The life of the intellect is the best and pleasantest for man, because the intellect more than anything else is the man. Thus it will be the happiest life as well. Nature of man is not what he was born as, but what he is born for. The only stable state is the one in which all men are equal before the law. Happiness is the meaning and the purpose of life, the whole aim and end of human existence. Those who are not angry at the things they should be angry at are thought to be fools, and so are those who are not angry in the right way, at the right time, or with the right persons. We assume therefore that moral virtue is the quality of acting in the best way in relation to pleasures and pains, and that vice is the opposite. Good has two meanings. It means that which is good absolutely, and that which is good for somebody. Education is the best provision for old age. The complete man must work, study, and wrestle. The best way to teach morality is to make it a habit with children. Man is by nature a political animal. The ideal man takes joy in doing favors for others. True happiness flows from the possession of wisdom and virtue, and not from the possession of external goods. Where your talents and the needs of the world cross, there lies your vocation. Youth loves honor and victory more than money. Those who act receive the prizes. Philosophy can make people sick. Happiness is a certain activity of soul in conformity with perfect goodness. The greatest victory is over self. We laugh at that which we cannot bear to face. Intuition is the source of scientific knowledge. Our actions determine our dispositions. It is not once nor twice, but times without number that the same ideas make their appearance in the world. Every art and every inquiry, and similarly every action and pursuit, is thought to aim at some good, and for this reason the good has rightly been declared to be that at which all things aim. Revolutions are effected in two ways, by force and by fraud. The soul becomes prudent by sitting and being quiet. A good character carries with it the highest power of causing a thing to be believed. Friends are an aid to the young, to guard them from error, to the elderly, to attend to their wants, and to supplement their failing power of action, to those in the prime of life, to assist them to noble deeds. A flatterer is a friend who is your inferior, or pretends to be so. Good moral character is not something that we can achieve on our own. We need a culture that supports the conditions under which self-love and friendship flourish. Comedy aims at representing men as worse, tragedy as better than in actual life. No one loves the man whom he fears. Every wicked man is in ignorance as to what he ought to do and from what to abstain, and it is because of error such as this that men become unjust and, in a word, wicked. The ideal man is his own best friend and takes delight in privacy. The light of the day is followed by night, as a shadow follows a body. Adoration is made out of a solitary soul occupying two bodies. The antidote for 50 enemies is one friend. Virtue is the golden mean between two vices, the one of excess and the other of deficiency. When the storytelling goes bad in a society, the result is decadence. Happiness is the utilization of one's talents along lines of excellence. Remember that time slurs over everything, let all deeds fade, blurs all writings and kills all memories. Exempt are only those which dig into the hearts of men by love. Change in all things is sweet. Without virtue it is difficult to bear gracefully the honors of fortune. He is his own best friend and takes delight in privacy, whereas the man of no virtue or ability is his own worst enemy and is afraid of solitude. No one would choose a friendless existence on condition of having all the other things in the world. Happiness belongs to the self-sufficient. When you feel yourself lacking something, send your thoughts towards your intimate and search for the divinity that lives within you. All that we do is done with an eye to something else. The law is reason unaffected by desire. Wickedness is nourished by lust. A man is his own best friend, therefore he ought to love himself best. Yes, the truth is that men's ambition and their desire to make money are among the most frequent causes of deliberate acts of injustice. Life in the true sense is perceiving or thinking. There's many a slip between the cup and the lip. All men by nature desire knowledge. Virtue makes us aim at the right end, and practical wisdom makes us take the right means. The state comes into existence for the sake of life and continues to exist for the sake of good life. Consider pleasures as they depart, not as they come. We must become just be doing just acts. Fine friendship requires duration rather than fitful intensity. All learning is derived from things previously known. In educating the young we steer them by the rudders of pleasure and pain. Every realm of nature is marvelous. A change in the shape of the body creates a change in the state of the soul. Whether we will philosophize or we won't philosophize, we must philosophize. What soon grows old? Gratitude. Peace is more difficult than war. The man who is content to live alone is either a beast or a god. The final cause, then, produces motion through being loved. The greatest virtues are those which are most useful to other persons. Bashfulness is an ornament to youth, but a reproach to old age. For what is the best choice for each individual is the highest it is possible for him to achieve. God and nature create nothing that does not fulfill a purpose. Evils draw men together. Why do men seek honor? Surely in order to confirm the favorable opinion they have formed of themselves. Since music has so much to do with the molding of character, it is necessary that we teach it to our children. Everyone honors the wise. Knowing what is right does not make a sagacious man. The character which results from wealth is that of a prosperous fool. We are what we continually do. We give up leisure in order that we may have leisure, just as we go to war in order that we may have peace. Nature does nothing in vain. Therefore, it is imperative for persons to act in accordance with their nature and develop their latent talents in order to be content and complete. Of mankind in general, the parts are greater than the whole. The activity of happiness must occupy an entire lifetime, for one swallow does not a summer make. Self-sufficiency is both a good and an absolute good. The young are permanently in a state resembling intoxication. A happy life is thought to be one of excellence. Now an excellent life requires exertion and does not consist in amusement. The same ideas, one must believe, recur in men's minds not once or twice, but again and again. A friend is simply one soul in two bodies. A king ruleth as he ought, a tyrant as he lists, a king to the profit of all, a tyrant only to please a few. The self-indulgent man craves for all pleasant things and is led by his appetite to choose these at the cost of everything else. While the faculty of sensation is dependent upon the body, mind is separable from it. We must not feel a childish disgust at the investigations of the meaner animals, for there is something marvelous in all natural things. It is no part of a physician's business to use either persuasion or compulsion upon the patients. We must be neither cowardly nor rash, but courageous. Distance does not break off the friendship absolutely, but only the activity of it. To be angry is easy, but to be angry with the right man at the right time and in the right manner, that is not easy. The true end of tragedy is to purify the passions. Every rascal is not a thief, but every thief is a rascal. The ultimate value of life depends upon awareness and the power of contemplation rather than upon mere survival. We have divided the virtues of the soul into two groups, the virtues of the character and the virtues of the intellect. That which is excellent endures. A tragedy is that moment where the hero comes face to face with his true identity. Wonder implies the desire to learn. With respect to the requirement of art, the probable impossible is always preferable to the improbable possible. The true nature of anything is what it becomes at its highest. Learning is not child's play. We cannot learn without pain. But what is happiness? If we consider what the function of man is, we find that happiness is a virtuous activity of the soul. A man who examines each subject from a philosophical standpoint cannot neglect them. He has to omit nothing and state the truth about each topic. Goodness is to do good to the deserving and love the good and hate the wicked, and not to be eager to inflict punishment or take vengeance, but to be gracious and kindly and forgiving. Happiness involves engagement in activities that promote one's highest potentials. If men are given food, but no chastisement nor any work, they become insolent. Music has a power of forming the character and should therefore be introduced into the education of the young. Man, as an originator of action, is a union of desire and intellect. All men seek one goal, success or happiness. It may be argued that peoples for whom philosophers legislate are always prosperous. Those who educate children well are more to be honored than they who produce them, for these only gave them life, those the art of living well. Good laws, if they are not obeyed, do not constitute good government. In inventing a model we may assume what we wish, but should avoid impossibilities. The soul is the form of the body. The best friend is he that, when he wishes a person's good, wishes it for that person's own sake. Experience has shown that it is difficult, if not impossible, for a populous state to be run by good laws. Wicked men obey out of fear, good men out of love. Memory is the scribe of the soul. It was through the feeling of wonder that men now and at first began to philosophize. We can do noble acts without ruling the earth and sea. The science that studies the supreme good for man is politics. The angry man wishes the object of his anger to suffer in return. Hatred wishes its object not to exist. Music has the power of producing a certain effect on the moral character of the soul, and if it has the power to do this, it is clear that the young must be directed to music and must be educated in it. Poetry is finer and more philosophical than history, for poetry expresses the universal and history only the particular. The only stable principle of government is equality according to proportion, and for every man to enjoy his own. Perfect friendship is the friendship of men who are good and alike in excellence, for these wish well alike to each other qua good, and they are good in themselves. This world is inescapably linked to the motions of the worlds above. All power in this world is ruled by these options. All art is concerned with coming into being. Some vices miss what is right because they are deficient, others because they are excessive, in feelings or in actions, while virtue finds and chooses the mean. The physician heals, nature makes well. Young people are in a condition like permanent intoxication, because life is sweet and they are growing. All things are full of gods. Between husband and wife, friendship seems to exist by nature, for man is naturally disposed to pairing. All men are alike when asleep. The life of money-making is one undertaken under compulsion, and wealth is evidently not the good we are seeking, for it is merely useful and for the sake of something else. Each human being is bred with a unique set of potentials that yearn to be fulfilled as surely as the acorn yearns to become the oak within it. A man's happiness consists in the free exercise of his highest faculties. Men create the gods after their own images. Liars, when they speak the truth, are not believed. While fiction is often impossible, it should not be implausible. A true friend is one soul in two bodies. Excellence is not an art, it is the habit of practice. The soul is characterized by these capacities: self-nutrition, sensation, thinking, and movement. Beauty is the gift of God. It is simplicity that makes the uneducated more effective than the educated when addressing popular audiences. Teaching is the highest form of understanding. A great city is not to be confounded with a populous one. A state is not a mere society, having a common place, established for the prevention of mutual crime and for the sake of exchange. Political society exists for the sake of noble actions and not mere companionship. Happiness is activity. Our youth should also be educated with music and physical education. To appreciate the beauty of a snowflake, it is necessary to stand out in the cold. All that one gains by falsehood is not to be believed when he speaks the truth. No one who desires to become good will become good unless he does good things. Why is it that all men who are outstanding in philosophy, poetry, or the arts are melancholic? Finally, if nothing can be truly asserted, even the following claim would be false: the claim that there is no true assertion. Injustice results as much from treating unequals equally as from treating equals unequally. We become just by performing just action, temperate by performing temperate actions, brave by performing brave action. It is unbecoming for young men to utter maxims. A friend is a second self. It is also in the interests of a tyrant to make his subjects poo. The people are so occupied with their daily tasks that they have no time for plotting. The mass of mankind are evidently slavish in their tastes, preferring a life suitable to beasts. To perceive is to suffer. It is not enough to win a war, it is more important to organize the peace. All human happiness and misery take the form of action. Leisure of itself gives pleasure and happiness and enjoyment of life, which are experienced not by the busy man, but by those who have leisure. Law is mind without reason. We make war that we may live in peace. Wicked men obey for fear, but the good for love. Freedom is obedience to self-formulated rules. Love is the cause of unity in all things. Happiness is self-connectedness. Also, that which is desirable in itself is more desirable than what is desirable per accidens. When you ask a dumb question, you get a smart answer. A bad man can do 1,000,000 times more harm than a beast. All communication must lead to change. Nature does nothing in vain. Where it is in our power to act, it is also in our power to not act. In general, what is written must be easy to read and easy to speak, which is the same. A friend is a second self, so that our consciousness of a friend's existence makes us more fully conscious of our own existence. Neglect of an effective birth control policy is a never-failing source of poverty which, in turn, is the parent of revolution and crime. To the size of the state there is a limit, as there is to plants, animals, and implements, for none of these retain their facility when they are too large. Law is order, and good law is good order. Women should marry when they are about 18 years of age, and men at 7 and 30. Then they are in the prime of life, and the decline in the powers of both will coincide. The educated differ from the uneducated as much as the living from the dead. Actions determine what kind of characteristics are developed. Man perfected by society is the best of all animals. He is the most terrible of all when he lives without law and without justice. It is not easy for a person to do any great harm when his tenure of office is short, whereas long possession begets tyranny. Men are divided between those who are as thrifty as if they would live forever, and those who are as extravagant as if they were going to die the next day. The man with a host of friends who slaps on the back everybody he meets is regarded as the friend of nobody. Equality is not an act, it is a habit. Democracy is the form of government in which the free are rulers. Thus, every action must be due to one or other of 7 causes: chance, nature, compulsion, habit, reasoning, anger, or appetite. And it is characteristic of man that he alone has any sense of good and evil, of just and unjust, and the like, and the association of living beings who have this sense makes family and a state. A whole is that which has a beginning, a middle, and an end. He who is to be a good ruler must have first been ruled. Emotions of any kind can be evoked by melody and rhythm. Therefore, music has the power to form character. The one exclusive sign of thorough knowledge is the power of teaching. Wishing to be friends is quick work, but friendship is a slow ripening fruit. Wicked men obey from fear, good men from love. Happiness depends on ourselves. He who is by nature not his own but another's man is by nature a slave. We must no more ask whether the soul and body are one than ask whether the wax and the figure impressed on it are one. For good is simple, evil manifold. Personal beauty is a greater recommendation than any letter of reference. Character may almost be called the most effective means of persuasion. Philosophy is the science which considers truth. Most people would rather give than get affection. Whatsoever that be within us that feels, thinks, desires, and animates is something celestial, divine, and consequently imperishable. Democracy arose from men's thinking that if they are equal in any respect, they are equal absolutely. The body is most fully developed from 30 to 35 years of age, the mind at about 49. He who thus considers things in their first growth and origin will obtain the clearest view of them. Equality consists in the same treatment of similar persons. One swallow does not make a spring, nor does one fine day. Revolutions are not about trifles, but spring from trifles. Between friends there is no need of justice. Yellow-colored objects appear to be gold. Courage is the first of human qualities because it is the quality which guarantees the others. The energy or active exercise of the mind constitutes life. The heart is the perfection of the whole organism. Therefore, the principles of the power of perception and the soul's ability to nourish itself must lie in the heart. Happiness comes from the perfect practice of virtue. The generality of men are naturally apt to be swayed by fear rather than reverence, and to refrain from evil rather because of the punishment that it brings than because of its own foulness. He who takes his fill of every pleasure becomes depraved, while he who avoids all pleasures alike becomes insensible. To the sober person, adventurous conduct often seems insanity. Moral excellence comes about as a result of habit. We become just by doing just acts, temperate by doing temperate acts, brave by doing brave acts. Even when laws have been written down, they ought not always to remain unaltered. All who have meditated on the art of governing mankind have been convinced that the fate of empires depends on the education of youth. The greatest threat to the state is not faction, but distraction. The truly good and wise man will bear all kinds of fortune in a seemly way, and will always act in the noblest manner that the circumstances allow. If liberty and equality, as is thought by some, are chiefly to be found in democracy, they will be best attained when all persons alike share in government to the utmost. In a race, the quickest runner can never overtake the slowest, since the pursuer must first reach the point whence the pursued started, so that the slower must always hold a lead. The same thing may have all the kinds of causes, e.g., the moving cause of a house is the art or the builder, the final cause is the function it fulfills, the matter is earth and stones, and the form is the definitory formula. Nature operates in the shortest way possible. We praise a man who feels angry on the right grounds and against the right persons, and also in the right manner at the right moment, and for the right length of time. A friend to all is a friend to none. He who has conferred a benefit on anyone from motives of love or honor will feel pain if he sees that the benefit is received without gratitude. Friendship is essentially a partnership. God has many names, though he is only one being. Happiness is prosperity combined with virtue. A true disciple shows his appreciation by reaching further than his teacher. It is their character indeed that makes people who they are, but it is by reason of their actions that they are happy or the reverse. In everything, it is no easy task to find the middle. And this lies in the nature of things. What people are potentially is revealed in actuality by what they produce. The life of children, as much as that of intemperate men, is wholly governed by their desires. Justice is the loveliest and health is the best, but the sweetest to obtain is the heart's desire. And yet the true creator is necessity, which is the mother of invention. Those who have been eminent in philosophy, politics, poetry, and the arts have all had tendencies toward melancholia. There also appears to be another element in the soul, which, though irrational, yet in a manner participates in rational principle. People never know each other until they have eaten a certain amount of salt together. No man of high and generous spirit is ever willing to indulge in flattery. The good may feel affection for others, but will not flatter them. The word is a sign or symbol of the impressions or affections of the soul. Definition of tragedy: a hero destroyed by the excess of his virtues. There is no great genius without a mixture of madness. Character is that which reveals moral purpose, exposing the class of things a man chooses and avoids. Since the things we do determine the character of life, no blessed person can become unhappy, for he will never do those things which are hateful and petty. Have a definite, clear, practical ideal, a goal, an objective. The coward calls the brave man rash. The rash man calls him a coward. Pleasure causes us to do base actions, and pain causes us to abstain from doing noble actions. It is clear that those constitutions which aim at the common good are right, as being in accord with absolute justice, while those which aim only at the good of the rulers are wrong. The bad man is continually at war with, and in opposition to, himself. It is of the nature of desire not to be satisfied, and most men live only for the gratification of it. Personal beauty requires that one should be tall. Little people may have charm and elegance, but beauty no. Imagination is a sort of faint perception. Good habits formed at youth make all the difference. No one will dare maintain that it is better to do injustice than to bear it. Therefore, even the lover of myth is a philosopher, for myth is composed of wonder. In painting, the most brilliant colors, spread at random and without design, will give far less pleasure than the simplest outline of a figure. Great men are always of a nature originally melancholy. In a democracy, the poor will have more power than the rich, because there are more of them, and the will of the majority is supreme. It is the repeated performance of just and temperate actions that produces virtue. They should rule who are able to rule best. Money originated with royalty and slavery. It has nothing to do with democracy or the struggle of the impoverished enslaved majority. Dignity does not consist in possessing honors, but in deserving them. It seems that ambition makes most people wish to be loved rather than to love others. The purpose of art is to represent the meaning of things. This represents the true reality, not external aspects. Speeches are like babies, easy to conceive, but hard to deliver. By myth I mean the arrangement of the incidents. Happiness lies in virtuous activity, and perfect happiness lies in the best activity, which is contemplative. A democracy, when put to the strain, grows weak and is supplanted by oligarchy. Aristocracy is that form of government in which education and discipline are qualifications for suffrage and office holding. Even the best of men in authority are liable to be corrupted by passion. We may conclude then that the law is reason without passion, and it is therefore preferable to any individual. Character gives us qualities, but it is in our actions, what we do, that we are happy or the reverse. Men create gods after their own image, not only with regard to their form, but with regard to their mode of life. Art takes nature as its model. The brave man, if he be compared with the coward, seems foolhardy, and, if with the foolhardy man, seems a coward. When people are friends, they have no need of justice, but when they are just, they need friendship in addition. Humor is the only test of gravity, and gravity of humor, for a subject which will not bear raillery is suspicious, and a jest which will not bear serious examination is falsehood. Those who excel in virtue have the best right of all to rebel, but then they are of all men the least inclined to do so. One who faces and who fears the right things and from the right motive, in the right way and at the right time, possesses character worthy of our trust and admiration. To run away from trouble is a form of cowardice, and while it is true that the suicide braves death, he does it not for some noble object but to escape some ill. There is simple ignorance, which is the source of lighter offenses, and double ignorance, which is accompanied by a conceit of wisdom. All art, all education can be merely a supplement to nature. Some men turn every quality or art into a means of making money. This they conceive to be the end, and to the promotion of the end all things must contribute. Thinking is different from perceiving and is held to be in part imagination, in part judgment. Money is a guarantee that we may have what we want in the future. Though we need nothing at the moment, it ensures the possibility of satisfying a new desire when it arises. In the perfect state, the good man is absolutely the same as the good citizen, whereas in other states the good citizen is only good relatively to his own form of government. Virtue is more clearly shown in the performance of fine actions than in the non-performance of base ones. For that which has become habitual becomes as it were natural. Happiness may be defined as good fortune joined to virtue, or a independence, or as a life that is both agreeable and secure. One thing alone not even God can do, to make undone whatever hath been done. A city is composed of different kinds of men. Similar people cannot bring a city into existence. Greatness of spirit is to bear finely both good fortune and bad, honor and disgrace, and not to think highly of luxury or attention or power or victories in contests, and to possess a certain depth and magnitude of spirit. The student of politics, therefore, as well as the psychologist, must study the nature of the soul. How many a dispute could have been deflated into a single paragraph if the disputants had dared to define their terms? If happiness, then, is activity expressing virtue, it is reasonable for it to express the supreme virtue, which will be the virtue of the best thing. The precepts of the law may be comprehended under these 3 points: to live honestly, to hurt no man willfully, and to render every man his due carefully. Every virtue is a mean between 2 extremes, each of which is a vice. The wise man knows of all things as far as possible, although he has no knowledge of each of them in detail. The chief forms of beauty are order and symmetry and definiteness, which the mathematical sciences demonstrate in a special degree. Purpose is a desire for something in our own power, coupled with an investigation into its means. Courage is a mean with regard to fear and confidence. The virtue as the art consecrates itself constantly to what's difficult to do, and the harder the task, the shinier the success. Purpose is held to be most closely connected with virtue, and to be a better token of our character than are even our acts. Some men are just as sure of the truth of their opinions as are others of what they know. A very populous city can rarely, if ever, be well governed. Temperance and bravery, then, are ruined by excess and deficiency, but preserved by the mean. Victory is pleasant, not only to those who love to conquer, but to all, for there is produced an idea of superiority, which all with more or less eagerness desire. It is easy to perform a good action, but not easy to acquire a settled habit of performing such actions. Rhetoric may be defined as the faculty of observing in any given case the available means of persuasion. Men pay most attention to what is their own. They care less for what is common, or, at any rate, they care for it only to the extent to which each is individually concerned. Thou wilt find rest from vain fancies if thou dost every act in life as though it were thy last. Man's best friend is one who wishes well to the object of his wish for his sake, even if no one is to know of it. Pay attention to the young and make them just as good as possible. It will contribute towards one's object, who wishes to acquire a facility in the gaining of knowledge, to doubt judiciously. For example, justice is considered to mean equality. It does mean equality, but equality for those who are equal, and not for all. Equity is that idea of justice which contravenes the written law. The law is reason, free from passion. Men are good in but one way, but bad in many. Politicians also have no leisure because they are always aiming at something beyond political life itself, power and glory, or happiness. Where the laws are not supreme, their demagogues spring up. Education begins at the level of the learner. And, speaking generally, passion seems not to be amenable to reason, but only to force. In all things of nature there is something of the marvelous. No democracy can exist unless each of its citizens is as capable of outrage at injustice to another as he is of outrage at injustice to himself. It is clearly better that property should be private, but the use of it common, and the special business of the legislator is to create in men this benevolent disposition. Shame is an ornament to the young, a disgrace to the old. Evil draws men together. Men acquire a particular quality by constantly acting in a particular way. Modesty is hardly to be described as a virtue. It is a feeling rather than a disposition. It is a kind of fear of falling into disrepute. Cruel is the strife of brothers. If happiness is activity in accordance with excellence, it is reasonable that it should be in accordance with the highest excellence. It is in justice that the ordering of society is centered. Whereas the law is passionless, passion must ever sway the heart of man. To be conscious that we are perceiving or thinking is to be conscious of our own existence. The principal aim of gymnastics is the education of all youth, and not simply that minority of people highly favored by nature. They who are to be judges must also be performers. Happiness is a sort of action. It is not the possessions but the desires of mankind which require to be equalized. There is more both of beauty and of raison d'etre in the works of nature than in those of art. Excellence or virtue in a man will be the disposition which renders him a good man, and also which will cause him to perform his function well. Dissimilarity of habit tends more than anything to destroy affection. We become just by the practice of just actions. We deliberate not about ends, but about means. Time past, even God is deprived of the power of recalling. When the looms spin by themselves, we'll have no need for slaves. I have gained this from philosophy, that I do without being commanded what others do only from fear of the law. To Thales, the primary question was not what do we know, but how do we know it? Nature makes nothing incomplete and nothing in vain. In part, art completes what nature cannot elaborate, and in part it imitates nature. Some believe it to be just friends wanting, as if to be healthy enough to wish health. Neither by nature, then, nor contrary to nature do the virtues arise in us. Rather, we are adapted by nature to receive them, and are made perfect by habit. All teaching and all intellectual learning come about from already existing knowledge. It is the active exercise of our faculties in conformity with virtue that causes happiness, and the opposite activities its opposite. The best tragedies are conflicts between a hero and his destiny. The least deviation from truth will be multiplied later. The rattle is a toy suited to the infant mind, and education is a rattle or toy for children of larger growth. A democracy is a government in the hands of men of low birth, no property, and vulgar employments. Perhaps here we have a clue to the reason why royal rule used to exist formerly, namely the difficulty of finding enough men of outstanding virtue. What the statesman is most anxious to produce is a certain moral character in his fellow citizens, namely a disposition to virtue and the performance of virtuous actions. In order to be effective, you need not only virtue, but also mental strength. The true nature of a thing is the highest it can become. Men are swayed more by fear than by reverence. Every art and every inquiry, and similarly every action and choice, is thought to aim at some good, and for this reason the good has rightly been declared to be that at which all things aim. I seek to bring forth what you almost already know. He who confers a benefit on anyone loves him better than he is beloved. The many are more incorruptible than the few. They are like the greater quantity of water, which is less easily corrupted than a little. We are what we repeatedly do. Melancholy men, of all others, are the most witty. No tyrant need fear till men begin to feel confident in each other. It is likely that unlikely things should happen. For those who possess and can wield arms are in a position to decide whether the Constitution is to continue or not. We are not angry with people we fear or respect, as long as we fear or respect them. You cannot be afraid of a person and also at the same time angry with him. The line between lawful and unlawful abortion will be marked by the fact of having sensation and being alive. To enjoy the things we ought and to hate the things we ought has the greatest bearing on excellence of character. No science ever defends its first principles. That rule is the better which is exercised over better subjects. The guest will judge better of a feast than the cook. He then alone will strictly be called brave who is fearless of a noble death, and of all such chances as come upon us with sudden death in their train. Rising before daylight is also to be commended. It is a healthy habit and gives more time for the management of the household as well as for liberal studies. Beauty is a gift of God. That judges of important causes should hold office for life is a questionable thing, for the mind grows old as well as the body. Justice is that virtue of the soul which is distributive according to desert. A government which is composed of the middle class more nearly approximates to democracy than to oligarchy, and is the safest of the imperfect forms of government. The virtue of justice consists in moderation, as regulated by wisdom. To learn is a natural pleasure, not confined to philosophers, but common to all men. Therefore, the good of man must be the end of the science of politics. Everybody loves a thing more if it has cost him trouble. For instance, those who have made money love money more than those who have inherited it. All men by nature desire to know. An indication of this is the delight we take in our senses, for even apart from their usefulness they are loved for themselves. Tragedy is an imitation not of men, but of a life, an action. Our account does not rob the mathematicians of their science. In point of fact, they do not need the infinite, and do not use it. Human beings are curious by nature. For we are inquiring not in order to know what virtue is, but in order to become good, since otherwise our inquiry would have been of no use. In revolutions the occasions may be trifling, but great interests are at stake. It is through wonder that men now begin and originally began to philosophize, wondering in the first place at obvious perplexities, and then by gradual progression raising questions about the greater matters too. In poverty and other misfortunes of life, true friends are a sure refuge. Marriage is like retiring as a bachelor and getting a sexual pension. You don't have to work for the sex anymore, but you only get 65% as much. Everything is done with a goal, and that goal is good. And of course, the brain is not responsible for any of the sensations at all. The correct view is that the seat and source of sensation is the region of the heart. Here and elsewhere we shall not obtain the best insight into things until we actually see them growing from the beginning. The beginning of reform is not so much to equalize property as to train the noble sort of natures not to desire more and to prevent the lower from getting more. Two characteristic marks have above all others been recognized as distinguishing that which has soul in it from that which has not: movement and sensation. Youth should stay away from all evil, especially things that produce wickedness and ill will. The attainment of truth is then the function of both the intellectual parts of the soul. Therefore, their respective virtues are those dispositions which will best qualify them to attain truth. Ancient laws remain in force long after the people have the power to change them. Metaphysics involves intuitive knowledge of unprovable starting points, concepts, and truth, and demonstrative knowledge of what follows from them. It is the mark of an educated mind to rest satisfied with the degree of precision which the nature of the subject admits, and not to seek exactness where only an approximation is possible. To know what virtue is not enough. We must endeavor to possess and to practice it, or in some other manner actually ourselves to become good. We should venture on the study of every kind of animal without distaste, for each and all will reveal to us something natural and something beautiful. The arousing of prejudice, pity, anger, and similar emotions has nothing to do with the essential facts, but is merely a personal appeal to the man who is judging the case. Happiness is an activity of the soul in accordance with virtue. Neither old people nor sour people seem to make friends easily, for there is little that is pleasant in them. Art completes what nature cannot bring to finish. The artist gives us knowledge of nature's unrealized ends. To be always seeking after the useful does not become free and exalted souls. I say that habits but a long practice, friend, and this becomes men's nature in the end. Thus then a single harmony alters the composition of the whole ... by the mingling of the most contrary principles. For pleasure is a state of soul, and to each man that which he is said to be a lover of is pleasant. Democracy arises out of the notion that those who are equal in any respect are equal in all respects. Because men are equally free, they claim to be absolutely equal. The unfortunate need people who will be kind to them. The prosperous need people to be kind to. He is courageous who endures and fears the right thing, for the right motive, in the right way and at the right times. It concerns us to know the purposes we seek in life, for then, like archers aiming at a definite mark, we shall be more likely to attain what we want. Happiness is the highest good. No one praises happiness as one praises justice, but we call it a blessing, deeming it something higher and more divine than things we praise. We have next to consider the formal definition of virtue. But nature flies from the infinite, for the infinite is imperfect, and nature always seeks an end. So that the lover of myths, which are a compact of wonders, is by the same token a lover of wisdom. If the art of shipbuilding were in the wood, ships would exist by nature. The avarice of mankind is insatiable. At one time 2 obols was pay enough. But now, when this sum has become customary, men always want more and more without end. Men become builders by building and lyre players by playing the lyre. So too we become just by doing just acts, temperate by doing temperate acts, brave by doing brave acts. There is nothing strange in the circle being the origin of any and every marvel. It is evident that the state is a creation of nature, and that man is by nature a political animal. Different men seek after happiness in different ways and by different means, and so make for themselves different modes of life and forms of government. The greatest thing in style is to have a command of metaphor. To leave the number of births unrestricted, as is done in most states, inevitably causes poverty among the citizens, and poverty produces crime and faction. Selfishness doesn't consist in a love to yourself, but in a big degree of such love. If the hammer and the shuttle could move themselves, slavery would be unnecessary. We must, as second best, as people say, take the least of the evils. If you prove the cause, you at once prove the effect, and conversely nothing can exist without its cause. Think as wise men do, but speak as the common people do. To die in order to avoid the pains of poverty, love, or anything that is disagreeable is not the part of a brave man, but of a coward. The excellence of a thing is related to its proper function. The specific excellence of verbal expression in poetry is to be clear without being low. For the more limited, if adequate, is always preferable. For as the eyes of bats are to the blaze of day, so is the reason in our soul to the things which are by nature most evident of all. This much then is clear, in all our conduct it is the mean that is to be commended. Equality is of 2 kinds, numerical and proportional. By the first I mean sameness of equality in number or size. By the second, equality of ratios. The blood of a goat will shatter a diamond. With the truth, all given facts harmonize, but with what is false, the truth soon hits a wrong note. When you are lonely, when you feel yourself an alien in the world, play chess. This will raise your spirits and be your counselor in war. Between friends there is no need for justice, but people who are just still need the quality of friendship, and indeed friendliness is considered to be justice in the fullest sense. Life is full of chances and changes, and the most prosperous of men may in the evening of his days meet with great misfortunes. The two qualities which chiefly inspire regard and affection are that a thing is your own, and that it is your only one. Where perception is, there also are pain and pleasure, and where these are, there, of necessity, is desire. Justice therefore demands that no one should do more ruling than being ruled, but that all should have their turn. For often, when one is asleep, there is something in consciousness which declares that what then presents itself is but a dream. Those that deem politics beneath their dignity are doomed to be governed by those of lesser talents. Earthworms are the intestines of the soil. We, on the other hand, must take for granted that the things that exist by nature are, either all or some of them, in motion. In the works of nature, purpose, not accident, is the main thing. For imagining lies within our power whenever we wish, but in forming opinions we are not free. All flatterers are mercenary, and all low-minded men are flatterers. Everything that depends on the action of nature is by nature as good as it can be. The true friend of the people should see that they be not too poor, for extreme poverty lowers the character of the democracy. Man first begins to philosophize when the necessities of life are supplied. People become house builders through building houses, harp players through playing the harp. We grow to be just by doing things which are just. Those who believe that all virtue is to be found in their own party principles push matters to extremes. They do not consider that disproportion destroys a state. A good style must have an air of novelty, at the same time concealing its art. The continuum is that which is divisible into indivisibles, that are infinitely divisible. Men in general desire the good and not merely what their fathers had. For one swallow does not make a summer, nor does one day, and so too one day, or a short time, does not make a man blessed and happy. A constitution is the arrangement of magistracies in a state. If some animals are good at hunting and others are suitable for hunting, then the gods must clearly smile on hunting. Happiness is an expression of the soul in considered actions. Quite often good things have hurtful consequences. There are instances of men who have been ruined by their money or killed by their courage. Again, the male is by nature superior, and the female inferior, and the one rules, and the other is ruled. This principle of necessity extends to all mankind. That which is in locomotion must arrive at the halfway stage before it arrives at the goal. Which quote did you like the most? Share your opinion in the comments. Don't miss out on a chance to see the next video. Subscribe.